Speaking of staff, how many staff members do you have at the bowling center?
Well, right now we don't have a lot.
Sure.
But
Typically.
well, between the bowling center and the restaurants, we probably average between 60 to 65
What's it?
before COVID.
Yeah. What's it like being? I mean, in a way, right? Being responsible financially and as an employer, what's it like kind of holding that responsibility for 65 families?
Well, back in March when we did the shutdown, okay, it was really hard.
Yeah.
Okay, because, geez, you have like 65 families depending upon you, to some degree. Okay, I mean, a lot of our people do work part time, but
Sure.
but still, it's something that I would not want to go through again.
Sure.
Okay. Now, we in like you say, the darkest days of the COVID, which would be the second half of March and beginning
Right.
of April.
Into April. Yep.
Okay, we were really down to just like a handful. I had my manager, which is Andy Hevesy, and he's been with us for many, many years. He's great. Okay. Hannah Bruzel, she's in charge of our sales and marketing. We kept our head person in the kitchen. Okay. We weren't allowed to sell any drinks, so I couldn't really have much of the bartending staff.
Sure.
We had to get creative on we have 40 beers on tap.
Right.
But initially, how do you sell that? And actually, my mother indirectly gave me the idea. And my mom's 98, okay?
Okay.
And my mom loves drinking Marburger iced tea.
Yeah.
So I'm up there visiting her, and I realized, geez, that's a jug that sort of is local. So I reached out to Marburger Dairy, and I said, hey, the jugs that you use, can I buy those? And then that way, if somebody, we didn't have growlers, which a lot of the brew houses have growlers. We just don't have a history of people taking the beer out of our establishment. They normally come and they want to stay, do an activity or just, chill out at our place. Okay. But we really don't have a history of people removing beer, taking it home. So we had to get creative. And I contacted Marburger Dairy. And I drove down to Evans City, and they sold me like this whole pallet of these plastic jugs and caps.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we were able to, because what do? You have 40 beers on tap. You're not allowed to really have customers in the building. The stuff's going to go bad.
Yeah.
Eventually. I mean, luckily all of our stuff was fresh when we did the shutdown.
Okay.
And you have, you have a reasonable period of time to sell the things. Okay. And then before we opened up, actually the brewery took back any kegs that we had not tapped. It was wonderful.
Right.
Because we thought for sure that was going to be stuff we would have to toss.
Sure.
Okay. And it made a big difference because we, like a lot of businesses, we went through everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't a dime left in the building. And we went to credit cards.
Yeah.
Because I have a really wonderful lady that works in the office. She normally does the counting. Well, she's in her 70s. Okay, so she would be susceptible. Her husband was having chemotherapy.
Right.
I didn't want to get her exposed to anything. Okay, so it was only this week that we went back to where you could do cash every night of the week.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when could you guys officially open back up again?
Well, the bowling center wasn't opened until the last Tuesday in July.
Okay. Wow.
Even though we were allowed to open, the issue that was going on was when you went into the shutdown, and then we got some PPP money. Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Okay, and you could start bringing people back. What do you do with people that you're not allowed to open?
Sure.
Okay, it's not like people can work remotely, for bowling. Okay, for the bar, the restaurant, you can't. We could bring back a few people, but we weren't selling a lot of takeout. Okay, because we just didn't have a history of takeout. People just didn't think of us in that manner, which I get.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had to come up with projects. Okay. The government says you need to bring back as many people as you can and spend this money in 8 weeks. Okay. So we started looking at this needs done and that could get done. And it was a lot of projects that were very hard to do if we were not shut down. Okay. So one of the first we did was in the kitchen. Okay. There was an issue with a drain that had gone on since day one. We decided, you know what, we're going to fix that.
Yeah.
But in order to fix that, we have to saw cut the floor. We have to jackhammer the cement up. We got to get a plumber in there.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's messy. Okay. You can't be serving dinners.
Sure.
When that part of the building is all cut up. So we ended up, I contacted a tile company in Ohio that we had bought the original tile from. And so actually I put some of my cooks worked with me and we literally did all this, retile, tore up the whole floor.
Good for you guys.
Put down this, laid all this ceramic tile.
Yeah.
I mean, most of my staff had never laid a tile ever,
Right.
but by the time that they were done, they were pretty good.
They know now, yeah.
That was one project, and then the second one was we knew based on what we saw on TV that there was going to be a big movement for outside. People are going to want to be cautious. And the one thing that we are really blessed with is we got a lot of space. We have a big building inside, and we have a huge piece of property. So the idea was, let's go outside. Okay. And it was probably maybe the third or the fourth week into the shutdown that we had one of those eureka moments.
Sure.
To where we realized, look, we need to do this outside. What do we need to do in order to get this accomplished? And the very first thing we realized was, well, if you want to serve a beer outside, you have to have that piece of property licensed. Okay. So we reached out to the LCB for the state of Pennsylvania. And actually very quickly we submitted an application. They informed us that it's a 30-day process. Okay. But they didn't know if it was going to take more than 30 days because even their staff in Harrisburg was pretty limited as to who was coming in and so forth. So they were honest with us. They said it normally takes 30 days, but it could take longer because of what's going on. We're right next to the school property. They have to send out letters to all the property owners. And to be honest, the only property owner is pretty much the Butler School District.
Right.
And we have a long history program with them.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, very good rapport with them. And so 30 days came, 30 days went, and we got our approval from the state. Okay. And then in the meanwhile, we had built these 7 cabanas.
Yeah.
and they're like spaced like 20 feet apart. So it's way beyond the 6 foot
sure.
Social distancing that they say is the minimum. Okay, we actually licensed 16,000 square feet. Okay, now if you use the 6 foot square, 6 feet distance as a rule of thumb, that 16,000 square feet could technically hold 400 people, over 400 people.
Right.
So, we knew people were not going to be squished together. But at the same time, we felt people needed to get out. They're going to have cabin fever. They're going to be sort of going a little bonkers at home.
Sure.
Okay. But at the same time, we felt you would feel comfortable with your family and maybe your immediate friends. You probably don't feel comfortable with somebody you don't know. So the idea was to create this space to where you could have a private area and the next table was far away from you, and they had their private area, and everybody would have their own private area, okay? So we built 7 cabanas. We actually fenced it in. We built these big, massive gates, and initially, we did all this ourselves pretty much.
Yeah.
And we built these gates so big that we had to like scale them back a little bit because they probably weighed like 1,000 pounds, and it was too much weight. So then we had to take some stuff off of it.
Yeah.
And then I call them our King Kong doors. That I bought them from King Kong on eBay because it sort of reminded me from like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
A set of doors like that. And there's technically it's 4 doors. But we had to have that because in case of a fire truck needs to get through, we had to have a drive lane big enough that a vehicle could get in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So there were a bunch of rules that we had to, follow.
Yeah.
And make sure that we were doing right because, you don't want anybody to get hurt.
Sure.
Okay. So we were doing all this sort of on the fly. Okay. And, you couldn't ask anybody to come and give their opinion because nobody was going out anywhere. So we had to do a lot of this by phone.